Hello everyone, this is video 6 of the address book project. In this video we will work on adding new contact to our list. To remind you, so far we were able to populate the table view with the list. We currently have a default contact that we create in the data controller, and we were able to add a detail view where you can click on the contact and it brings about or slides a new view and displays details of information from that single contact, and then you can click and go back. In today's video we will work on adding a new contact to that list. There are some new features in there. First, we will have to add a new contact controller and have a button and a segue that take us to that new contact. However, coming back from the new contact is not the same as coming back from the details. In the details, you don't have to affect the list, but in the new contact, when you come back, you either coming back with a new contact that need to be added to the list and the list need to refresh, or you're coming back with a cancel, meaning that the user went to the new contact and decided they changed their mind, so they cancel and come back with no effect. So we will learn about how we can come back from a view to the original one without the back button, how we can come back in two different cases, and how we can bring data from the detail view to the original view. In our case, not in our case, in our experience so far, we've been moving data from the original view to the secondary. We never had to move data from the secondary back. So today, in this feature, adding new, we will have to figure out how we can do that, moving data back. So to start this process, we will build a view controller, add the add new button, connect the two together. This part of it is not new. We have done it many times before, so let's work on that. And then the new part is taking the data back, and we'll work on that later. So let's go ahead and add a new view controller. To add the address, since we decided in this project to have 3 elements to represent the contact, a first name, a last name, and email, when we add a new contact, we want to add these 3 elements. So we probably going to be using text field for that, so the user can enter a new text. And you can use a view controller as we did in the previous project and add 3 text fields to the view controller, or we can also use the table view controller to that. I'm going to go with the table view controller to give you more experience using the table view controller in different cases. So we'll drag a table view controller from our detail, and let me zoom out and position it in our area here. And the table view controller comes connected to a controller that's in the library, the default controller. If you want to do any custom behavior to the controller, then you need to add your own class that extends or that subclasses the UI table view controller and link the two together, which we have done plenty of times before. So let's go ahead and right click on the project, click on new file, and select iOS Coca Touch template and select the Objective-C class template. It has to be a subclass of UI table view controller, which is the same as this, and then we call this is our add new view controller. So this is a view controller to add a new contact. Maybe we can even call it add new contact view controller. Choose where you want to save it. So we save it over here. So here is our add new contact view controller header and implementation. Back to the storyboard, we need to connect this class to the add new contact view controller, and it is not showing yet. There is another one that I had from previously, but the add new contact is not yet showing up. You can just wait for it for a second or so, or you can start typing it yourself. So I can start typing it, add new contact view controller, and it recognized it, and here is our add. It reflects over here, and that's when you know that they are connected together. So now let's specify the details of this new contact. We will need to link from the address book to the table view, the new table view controller. So to do that, we need to add a bar button. So look for the tab bar button, or you can add a button also. This is navigation bar item, bar button item. So bar button item, drag that and drop it on the right side, and here is our bar button item. Selecting the bar button item and going to the attributes, there is an add, so you can draw identifier. You can make your own, or you can use one of the existing ones. So I'm just going to use the add. You can give it a title or image, but you can use the one. You can use it's bordered, it is done, it's plain. I'm just going to go with that. You can experiment with all of these different options that you have over there. Second, I'm going to connect from that button, so control, and drag from that button to the add new contact view and release. You have two types of segue. Push segue is the one that provides you with a back button. We're going to go with a modal segue for this one. And when you click on modal segue, you have different types of transitions. You can cover vertically, flip horizontally, cross dissolve, partial curl, and you can identify that segue as well. So you can choose one of those, and you can practice and see which one you like it, and you can select to animate or not to animate. From the table, the contact list address book, we're sending two segues. The first segue is what we call the show details segue, and we needed the name for that segue. The second segue, let's call it also. So this we can call it add new segue. All right. So here is the table view controller with the segue, and then we have our table view. You can choose a content to be dynamic or static. Dynamic you use when you don't know how many cells or how many data you want to show. Similar, an example to this is our list. This controller. I'm just gonna make some room. The list view controller, or you can choose a static when you know how many they are, similar to the details view controller. We have a situation very similar to the details here, but instead of labels we have text fields, because instead of displaying the information, the user will enter the information. So we'll set up this one very similar to what we set up the details in the previous view. So we have one section, and you can select the section. If you bring about the document outline, you can see the details in the add new. Here is the table view, and here is the table view section. So if I select the table view section, I have a header, and I can write information in the header and then say thank you here. Then you have the cell, and the cell currently contains a content view inside the cell, and that doesn't have anything. In the details last video, we added a label to the content view. In this case, we're going to add a text field. So look for the text field control and add it as a content view to our cell. So here is our text field. You can specify what you want in the text field. In the placeholder, we will say enter first name. You can choose to have different features in here: border style, clear button. I will add a clear button. And on the keyboard, I will add, you can say we want the default keyboard for this, and the return key I want to be done. And that's all. So then we do the same thing for the next cell. Add a text field to the next cell. Align it with the previous text field. And in the placeholder, we'll say enter last name. In the clear button, appear while editing. And in the keyboard return key, I will use done. The third cell, we'll add another one. And the placeholder will be enter email address. And the clear button and the return key. Okay. So we have 3 text fields, and we know that we're going to be reading the data from these text fields, so we need to make them outlets. So I no longer need the editing area. For now, I'm going to go ahead and add the assistant editor and select the assistant editor for the contact, the add new contact.h. And since I'm using text fields here, I'm going to add the text field protocol, the delegate, so I can dismiss the keyboard. So UI text field delegate. We've used this before. So we can add the text field should return method in the implementation and dismiss the text field. So before I do anything, let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to switch from the interface to the implementation for a minute to add the text field should return method. And in the implementation also, since we're at it, since I have used a static table, I do not need any of the methods that specify the dynamic table cells, so I don't really need any of that. So select it all and delete. All right. So two things, not two things, one thing I wanted to do here, maybe do it after the view did load, is to dismiss the keyboard when the user clicks the return key. And we learned before that to do that, we need to implement the text field should return method from the UI text field delegate. So select that method, hit enter, and this is the text field that will call this method. So we'll use this text field, the argument, we'll use the argument here to say dismiss resign first responder. Why am I using the argument? Because every time the user clicks on the text on one of the text fields, any of the 3, when they click the done, it will call this method. And when it calls this method, it passes the argument of which text field was clicked. So I receive that argument. So I don't have to rely on those text fields being outlets. I can just use the argument and dismiss the text, the keyboard for that particular text field right from here. And then since this method returns a true or false, if things work out, I can say return whatever this method give me, because the resign first responder also returns true or false. So I can just say return whatever resign first responder. So if something went wrong, it will return false, and I'm just passing that false back. So this will guarantee that when the user clicks on the text field, that the text field will be respond. All right. The next thing we want to do is to connect to those text fields as outlets. So control, drag, and that's the first outlet. But I clicked the wrong. How did I know that I clicked the wrong one? Look at the type. It says UI table view cell. And if you look up here, it tells you this is the table view cell. So I selected the table view cell, but I don't want to connect the table view cell as an outlet. I want to click again, which will get me to the content view, then click again, which will get me to the text field. Now the text field, that's what I want to connect as an outlet. So click here and drag, and now you see in the type it says UI text field. That is the one that I want. So text field, text first name. This is the text field for the first name. Connect to that as an outlet. And then the second one, and keep clicking until you see up here the text field. Then control and drag, and you can see in the type text field, to just make sure, text last name, connect. And then in the email, do the same, control and drag, and then text email. So we made 3 properties here for the first name, the last name, and the email. We will need also one more property, which is a contact, because very similar to the details, in the details we had to create a contact property here, so that in the prepare for segue, the list took the contact that the user selected and assign it to the property in this view, the contact detail view, and then we use that property to retrieve first name, last name, and email and display them in those 3 labels. We're going to do something similar but the other way around. In the text fields, the user will enter the first name, the last name, and the email. And I need to create them in a contact property. And in that contact property, when we set the segue to go back to the address book, we will make that segue available. We'll make that contact property loaded by this first name, last name, and email, so that the user in this method in the contact list can retrieve it when we go back to it. And we will do that in the next video. But for now, let's just add that third property that we want, and then next video we'll set up those segues. So I want to add a contact property, and to do that I will need to import the contact.h header, then create a property for the contact. And for every property, you use the keyword property, the type, and then you give it a name. I'm going to call it new contact. And then you specify the method, the memory attributes for that property. And for this case, I'm going to use these 2 attributes. And I have a 4th property. That's all what we will need to do in the contact header file. And when we come back to in the next video, we will set up the 2 segues, the 2 buttons, one button to cancel and one button to save. And those 2 buttons will take us back to the address list, because it's this will be the place to carry the responsibility of saving a contact, because this is where the list is maintained and the data controller is maintained. So we'll stop here, and we'll see you in the next and final video for this project.